At 10, as we come on air, the jury in Donald Trump's hush money trial has reached its verdicts. The former president is accused of falsifying business records to cover up a payment to a porn star.
I'm Gary O'Donoghue in New York, where in moments from now we will discover whether Donald Trump has become the first ever former president to be convicted of a crime.
We'll have the very latest also tonight. Another defection from the Tories to Labour. Mark Logan represented Bolton North East for the Conservatives. Now he's backing Sir Keir Starmer for number 10. Rolling in stolen money. The gang behind Britain's biggest ever benefit fraud, £54 million, is sent to jail. The rise of the far right in Europe. We're in Italy as the EU prepares for elections.
Mr. Harris, are you driving? I'm looking at it right now.
And a man in America caught driving without a license bizarrely attends his own court hearing while driving.
On BBC London, a 9-year-old is fighting for her life this evening after a quadruple shooting at a restaurant in Dalston last night. Police remain on the scene.
Good evening. The jury in the hush money trial for the former president Donald Trump has reached its verdict after 11 hours of deliberations. He's facing 34 charges of falsifying business records to conceal money paid to a porn actress ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Well, Gary O'Donoghue is outside the courthouse live in New York for us. Gary, one assumes the court is being prepared for the jury to return.
We expected the jury to go home for the day, Clive, but suddenly we got a verdict and they're being brought back into court and they will be asked for their verdict on each and every one of those 34 charges. They will also individually be asked how they voted as jurors to check. The defence often wants that, and we will discover whether or not Donald Trump has become the first ever president in the history of the United States to be convicted of a crime. Almost 12 hours of deliberation by these jurors. I think most people thought this might go longer than this, but those 12 men and women, 7 men, 5 women, have come to a decision, and Donald Trump very shortly will discover whether or not he's a criminal.
All right, Gary, thank you for that. And of course, when we get that verdict, we'll return straight to New York. Now, here, it is a blow for Rishi Sunak in the election campaign with the shot fired from his own side. Mark Logan was once the proud Conservative MP for Bolton North East in Greater Manchester. Now he's joined Labour and is backing Sir Keir Starmer for number 10, though he won't be standing for the party. However, the Labour leader has his own internal problems amid growing anger over the fate of one of his longest-serving and best-known MPs. Diane Abbott says she's being banned from standing in the election, though Sir Keir says no final decision has been made. However, the intervention of the deputy leader, Angela Rayner, has upped the ante because she's saying she sees no reason why Ms Abbott shouldn't be allowed to run again. Chris Mason has more on all the twists and turns of an eventful day.
This man was a Conservative MP this time yesterday. Today he's saying he'll vote Labour at the general election and he's joining the party too.
When I look back to my teenage years in 1997, whenever Labour came to the fore at that time, and we obviously heard the song Things Can Only Get Better, I feel that we're at that point again in British politics and British history, and that's why that I've decided that I'll be going for Labour at this next election on the 4th of July.
How extraordinary. There you are quoting Labour's anthem from 1997 and you were a Conservative MP 24 hours ago. Well, that's quite a thing.
Well, I mean, this is not just something that in the last 24 hours that I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about this for a very long period of time, and I believe that the Labour Party has also been through and on a journey in the last few years.
Let's spell this out explicitly. Are you saying that the Conservative Party right now is unfit to govern?
Well, I just feel that the Conservative Party that I joined a decade ago is unrecognisable from the Conservative Party of today.
In what sense?
But that's not to say that there aren't my colleagues from the Conservative Party previously that have been doing a lot of hard work or necessarily haven't been doing good things. I don't want to, be critical in that sense, Chris, but I think just overall the sense and the tone, the hope and the optimism is with Labour, and it's no longer with the Conservative Party.
What do you say to the person who says you should have had a bit more guts? You should have crossed the floor, as a couple of other of your former Conservative colleagues did, literally crossed the floor whilst you were still an MP, rather than waiting until now?
Well, I had thought about it, obviously, before, but the thing was I just felt more comfortable with my ending as an MP at midnight last night, so just 24 hours ago. I felt that that was the right thing to do because the electorate did vote me in as a Conservative MP.
Final question, are you going to join the Labour Party?
Absolutely. Applications going in today.
Prime Minister, another Conservative defection tonight. Are people losing faith in you?
No answer from Rishi Sunak, but this minister on Question Time didn't have the option of walking away.
What is your response to that? That's another MP who's defected to Labour.
Well, look, each to their own. I mean, people make their own decisions. It's not a decision I would have made.
But look at this. What a contrast. 1 minute Labour's proudly showing off another former Conservative MP, while an almighty row rages about Diane Abbott, who's been a Labour MP for decades, over whether she can even be a candidate for them.
They just want me excluded from Parliament.
Diane Abbott was suspended from the Parliamentary Labour Party after saying Jewish, Irish and traveller people do not face racism all their lives. She apologised and was readmitted to the Parliamentary Party the other day. Enter next Labour's deputy leader, telling Sky News Diane Abbott should be able to stand again for the party.
If she wants to stay, then she should be able to stay. Diane's been a trailblazer, 37 years, first black female MP in Parliament, and she's shown people like me that you can be yourself.
And compare that with Keir Starmer. He is pointedly not saying he'd like her to stand again.
The situation in relation to Diane Abbott is that no decision has been taken to bar her, and, we have to remember that she was a trailblazer as an MP.
And there's more. This Labour activist on the left of the party has been banned.
Honestly, I'm just so shocked right now to be treated this badly after being such an active member of the party.
Faiza Shaheen had been due to run in a crucial London seat. She's apologised for liking a social media post that allegedly downplayed anti-Semitism.
Okay, one more.
Who Keir Starmer is willing to scoop up into his party and who he appears rather less enthusiastic about is generating no end of noise.
We're going to turn to Chris now, who's with me, because Mark Logan, he could have made this decision 8 days ago, before this general election campaign started, but he's chosen to do it now.
Yeah. So his answer to that is that he was elected as a Conservative MP and his constituents in Bolton had collectively chosen him as a Conservative MP and he felt duty-bound to see out his time as a Conservative MP. But in doing it now, Clive, he's doing it at just the point that the country is being asked collectively to reach his own decision. And here he is as a former Conservative MP now saying he's joining the Labour Party and he wants Keir Starmer to be Prime Minister, which is extraordinary. Labour have managed 3 defections from the Conservatives in just over a month. Defections normally are quite rare. Tonight the Conservatives are throwing a little bit of mud in Mr Logan's direction. They'd worried for a day or two, Clive, that he might be about to go walkies politically because he'd stopped answering his phone.
Right.
Quick update tonight on Faiza Shaheen. You saw her there in the report. Labour have picked a new candidate in Chingford and Woodford Green in London, which was the seat that she was hoping to fight. And then there is that difference between Labour's leader and deputy leader. Keir Starmer could have said today that he'd like to see Diane Abbott stand as a Labour MP. He chose not to. His deputy has said that. The Conservatives are saying he's being undermined by his deputy. This all has to be resolved by Tuesday. The party's National Executive Committee meet then. That's the deadline for them signing off who they want to stand in various seats around the country. You know, plenty within Labour had hoped that Diane Abbott would retire, they'd be able to shower her with praise, and the whole thing would be pretty quiet. It hasn't exactly turned out that way.
Indeed. Okay, Chris, thank you. Chris Mason, our political editor. We are going to take you straight to New York because Incredible news. Donald Trump, the former US president, has been found guilty on all counts in his hush money trial. Gary O'Donoghue is live in New York for us now. Bring us up to date, Gary.
Clive, this is a moment in the history of the United States. The first time a former president has ever been found guilty of a crime, and Donald Trump has been found guilty by 12 peers, 12 women and men from New York, of 34 separate counts of falsifying business records in order to conceal another crime. These are felony charges. This makes Donald Trump a convicted criminal. This gives him a criminal record. Never before in the history of this country has that ever happened. Here is how the last few weeks have unfolded.
Donald Trump, former president, current candidate and now convicted criminal. Never before in the history of the United States has a former US president been found guilty of committing a crime. He's now running for president with a criminal record. After weeks of evidence and more than 20 witnesses, a jury of 12 New Yorkers judged that he had broken the law by falsifying records to conceal a hush money payment to a porn star. The adult film actress Stormy Daniels, who says she had sex with Donald Trump when they met at a celebrity golf tournament. He denies that, but she was paid $130,000 to stop her going public with her story before the 2016 presidential election. Donald Trump's longtime fixer Michael Cohen made that payment. That in itself is not against the law. Mr. Trump, though, was charged with illegally falsifying business records because when he reimbursed Mr. Cohen, he recorded it as legal services. Mr. Trump's lawyers say it was all Michael Cohen's idea. Michael Cohen once said he'd take a bullet for Mr. Trump, but they fell out spectacularly, and Mr. Cohen became the prosecution's star witness. Donald Trump turned every day of this trial into a spectacle.
There's never been anything like this in the history of our country. This is a witch hunt and it's a shame.
Insisting he was being politically persecuted, not legitimately prosecuted.
I should be in Georgia now. I should be in Florida.
Complaining that he was kept from the campaign trail because he had to be present in court.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go into the icebox and sit for a long time.
Even taking issue with the air conditioning. Taking the stand, Stormy Daniels gave intimate and explicit detail of what she said happened in a hotel suite in 2006. She described Donald Trump as greeting her wearing black silk pajamas, playfully spanking him with a rolled-up magazine, and even how they had sex. Mr. Trump's lawyers said to her, "You have a lot of experience in making phony stories about sex appear to be real, right?" She replied, laughing, "That's not how I would put it. The sex in the films is very much real, just like what happened to me in that room."
What do you have to say?
Crucial to the prosecution's case, Michael Cohen was also a deeply flawed witness. He publicly parades his hatred for Donald Trump and has served time in prison, in part for lying to Congress.
Nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Mr. Trump's lawyers made him admit to lying under oath in other cases to undermine his testimony. He was the only witness who said Donald Trump personally approved the plan that the hush money repayments be classified as legal expenses. The prosecution asked him, "If it were not for the campaign, Mr. Cohen, would you have paid that money?" "No, ma'am," he replied. "At whose direction and on whose behalf did you commit that crime?" "On behalf of Mr. Trump," said Michael Cohen.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges.
This guilty verdict will not end Donald Trump's campaign for president. With less than 6 months to go until the election, he will use the conviction to rally his supporters and raise money, insisting he is being victimized. That has worked so far, but the polls suggest that some swing voters may be reluctant to support a candidate with a criminal record. Gary O'Donoghue, BBC News, New York.
Gary, the world is still processing this, and one wonders what happens now. Does he go to jail? Is he held in the cells overnight at least? Can he appeal? Where do we go from here?
There are, of course, a million questions. We're in utterly uncharted territory, Clive. I don't think he's going to go to prison now. I think he's almost certainly going to appeal. I think the judge will probably give him leave to appeal. We'll confirm that shortly. Sentencing won't take place for some weeks, we don't expect. And bear in mind, the maximum sentence for each of these charges is 4 years in prison for each of them. Now, that is a maximum, and that depends on a lot of factors, your previous record, other issues around, how you cooperated, etc. The other possibilities are probation or fines. So we won't know that for a while. But while this appeal is going through, and that could take weeks, if not months, Donald Trump knows that he's a criminal. He's been judged by his peers, not by Democrats, not by the deep state, not by his opponents around this country, by 12 men and women on a jury. And that has completely unknown consequences for his future in the coming months.
Indeed, he is the presumptive Republican nominee for the White House. If he does go to jail, and I think there is precedent for this, he can still campaign, can't he? He can still run.
You can run from president from a jail cell. That's absolutely true. It's been done before, about 100 years ago, by a communist. He didn't do too well. However, we don't really know what impact that will have because, of course, Donald Trump has used this whole trial strategy, these criminal prosecutions that he's facing. And bear in mind, this is not the only one. There are 3 others out there. Yes, they're all mired in legal difficulties, but there are 3 others out there waiting to happen. He has used that as part of his political strategy. He's raised money off it. He's galvanized his base, his supporters. He's got people geared up by it, seen it as, in some ways, a political advantage. But the one thing they do know is that the polling in some of those key swing states, and I'm thinking about the Midwest, places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, you go down to the Sun Belt, down at the bottom of the country, Arizona, Georgia, these sorts of places, a small number of votes separated Joe Biden and Donald Trump in those places last time around. And it only takes a small number of Republicans who we know from the polls believe that they can't really vote for someone with a criminal record. It only takes a small number of them to switch sides to make a huge difference in those key battleground states. So, as I said, this is a place where America has never been before. Americans have never faced this kind of choice before. And we will have to see come November whether or not this is a disadvantage or indeed an advantage for the former president. This could be what reinvigorates him as an outsider, as a victim of the deep state, as a victim, a political victim of persecution. A lot of people around this country will believe that as well. But that will be played out over the coming weeks. In the meantime, Donald Trump will wait and see whether or not it's prison for him.
You're absolutely right, Gary. I mean, for those independents who didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2020, are they likely to vote for a convicted felon, which is what he is now? But his support base, those who've been behind him right through this whole process, this will probably strengthen their belief that he is a victim.
I give you one recent poll, and this is one poll, one snapshot in time of Republicans. 7% of them said this would make them less likely to vote for Donald Trump. 24% of them said it would make them more likely to vote for Donald Trump. Now, if you're already voting for him, you can't vote for him more in that sense. But you can see the narrowness of the margins. Those numbers might look small, but in places like Georgia, for example, where the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2020 was just over 11,000 votes in a population of millions, you can see how this could move the needle and make a huge difference come November. Now, as I said to you before, this is a fundraising opportunity for Donald Trump. He's done that very successfully over previous court hearings, not just this case, but other cases as well. He will use this, and we will see him, no doubt, in the coming minutes talking about this as a political prosecution. That is something that is believed sincerely by his supporters around the country. And I'll tell you one thing, this verdict will divide this country even more than it's already divided. And believe you me, this is one partisan United
Gary,
States.
Gary, I'm just going to interrupt you there. We can hear the former president speaking now.
Trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now, from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should voters vote for a convicted felon?
Donald Trump speaking after he's just become the first former president to become a felon, convicted on several charges in his hush money trial. Let's go back to Gary O'Donoghue, who's outside the court. Gary, the former president there saying we had a conflicted judge. This is a rigged and disgraceful trial. He said that the country's gone to hell. This is a nation in decline. And he said the real decision, the real verdict will come in November. So he's going to keep running. He's going to keep plugging away at this.
He's going to keep running. He's already described himself on social media as a political prisoner. This is the United States, and he describes himself as a political prisoner. We've heard also, Clive, just in the last few seconds, that the sentencing of Donald Trump will take place on July the 11th. Why is that important? That is just 4 days before he will be officially nominated by the Republican National Convention as their candidate for president. So 4 days after he gets his sentence, he goes into that convention and they will choose him as their leader for November's election. The judge has also just denied Donald Trump the chance to appeal. He can appeal that judgment, if you get my meaning.
Yeah.
But this is such an extraordinary situation. And I think the thing to take away from this is that if you thought America was divided before today, just watch what happens now. This country really will become the most partisan it ever has as a result of this judgment.
Yeah, Gary, you say the sentencing is 4 days after he could well be confirmed as the Republican nominee for the White House. Do you believe there's any possibility, given he's a convicted felon, that the Republicans might say, you know what, this is a mistake. We shouldn't be doing this. Bring in Nikki Haley, bring in, I don't know, Marco Rubio, whomever.
It's 4 days before the convention, just to be clear. The convention starts on the 15th. He's being sentenced on the 11th. Look, there have been attempts before to say to the party by traditional Republicans, what Donald Trump would call rhinos, Republicans in name only, to get him off the ticket. They've all failed. You have to remember, Clive, Donald Trump has captured the Republican Party in this country 100%. He is the undisputed leader. They pay homage to him. They are obeisant to him. They follow his lead. Even those powerful Republicans in Congress, be it in the House or the Senate, the governors around the country, they dare not cross him for the large part. So I think, yes, sure, there's a rump of Republicans out there from the older party, if you like, that would like nothing less than to see him removed from the ticket. But there is not the impetus. There really isn't the candidate at the moment, perhaps with the exception of Nikki Haley. And the party in this country, Republican Party, Democratic Party, they're so decentralized that it's really impossible to organise that kind of movement to remove someone who is so popular with the base. The base is what counts, and that's what every single elected member of the Republican Party looks to.
One suspects, Gary, that the White House and Joe Biden, that they're not going to be saying anything.
Well, I think they'll find it hard to resist, but you're right. They have tried, although they failed this week, to be fair, when they brought Robert De Niro to just outside this court. They failed to keep out of this case. But they will, I think, let, in many ways, the country try and digest this. They always wanted to run against Donald Trump. Joe Biden always wanted him as his opponent because he thought he was the man he could beat. And he will undoubtedly be sitting there in the West Wing this evening thinking that job just got a little bit easier.
Okay, Gary O'Donoghue live in New York. Thanks for that, Gary. And we're going to go to Neda Tawfiq now, who's also standing by in New York for us. Neda, I mean, Donald Trump, he came out after those verdicts and he said that this was a conflicted judge, that this was a rigged, disgraceful trial. And he's pointing to the fact that this whole thing has taken place in New York, where he's had a lot of legal issues.
Yeah, well, Clive, that has certainly been Donald Trump's talking point from the beginning, going as far as to say that this case was directed out of Joe Biden's Department of Justice, which is just simply untrue. This is a case that was tried out of New York by the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, an elected Democrat, sure, but ultimately, whether Donald Trump claimed that this was a politically motivated case or not, his fate was in the hands of the 12 jurors, 7 men and 5 women who sat through weeks of testimony, heard everything the defense had to say. And ultimately, Clive, I think it is very notable that after 11 hours of deliberations on what was a very complex legal case, they still found that the prosecution had proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And what a case that was to wade through, Clive. Emotional, salacious testimony from Stormy Daniels, the adult film star, at the center of this case. Prosecutor said she provided the motive, that Donald Trump wanted to silence her because his campaign was in crisis mode before the 2016 election with the release of the Access Hollywood tape that was coming out. And over a timeline of compelling other testimony from a tabloid publisher who was involved in dirty tricks to help Donald Trump, his former fixer turned foe, and ultimately, Clive, documents that prosecutors really underlined. Documents don't lie. Even an audio recording of Donald Trump discussing another hush money payment to a former Playboy model. A tweet where Donald Trump called the reimbursements by that of reimbursement. So prosecutors had convinced jurors that the evidence was indisputable, and no matter what Donald Trump said outside of the courthouse, all that mattered was the evidence inside, and the jury found it convincing that Donald Trump sought to corrupt the 2016 election. And now, with this verdict, Donald Trump again shattering the norms of the nation's highest office, the first former president to be criminally convicted. He will now be a convicted felon as he is on the ballot, as voters decide whether to vote for him in November. He will be sentenced in this case on July 11th, just days from the Republican National Convention. There are so many unprecedented legal and political questions that many are asking now, Clive, and will need to be dissected. You can probably hear above me a helicopter buzzing above. When the verdict was read, there were celebrations here by those who despise Donald Trump, New Yorkers who feel that he was never held accountable. This is, of course, a historic and defining moment in the nation's history.
Indeed. Neda Tawfiq live there in New York with that remarkable news that the former president, Donald Trump, has been found guilty on all 4 of the charges leveled against him in his hush money trial. That is falsifying business records in order to cover up a payment to Stormy Daniels, the porn star. Much more on that on the BBC News channel and, of course, online. But now we're going to get the weather from Louise. Hi there.
Thanks, Clive. Good evening, everybody. Well, it's half-term week this week, and for those of you who are still camping, particularly out to the east, respect to you, because the picture tells the story. Threatening-looking skies, and for some today, it has been a cold and wet affair, particularly across that Yorkshire coast. In Fylingdale, we saw just a maximum of 10 degrees and just shy of an inch of rain today. Now, that rain has been sweeping its way south and east. There were a few rumbles of thunder across the southeast this evening as well. But out to the west, we've got high pressure building, and that's producing a very different story indeed. As the high moves in, the winds are lighter here, and just take a look at the story that we've seen today across the Western Isles, where we've had just over 9 hours of sunshine. Now, the welcome news is that that high pressure will start to dominate the story as we head into the weekend, but still a west-east divide for tomorrow. Best of the sunshine with lighter winds out to the west, but that nagging northerly wind will once again produce a rash of showers across East Anglia and southeast England for a time. A brisk wind here making it feel cool, although the showers will start to fade away as we go through the latter stages of the afternoon. Certainly the best of the sunshine though out to the west, and temperatures will respond here. 19 to 20 degrees, but cooler along that exposed east coast, just a maximum of 15 or 16. But into the weekend, the high pressure is going to drift that little bit further east. We will be chasing cloud amounts around at times, and maybe a weak weather front as well. But on the whole, for most of us, as we head towards the weekend and the beginning of June, it's going to be largely dry, settled, and just that little bit warmer for most of us than it's been this bank holiday weekend. Clive.
OK, Louise, thank you for that. Louise Lear. That's it. Much more continuing coverage on the BBC News channel of all the events happening in New York. But now let's join our colleagues for all the news where you are. Have a very good night.